Hello everybody, welcome to the show. I hope you're all having a wonderful summer, and welcome to our little studio here in lovely Luxembourg, where the temperature today is about 35 degrees Celsius outside. So we're very grateful for the air conditioning of this studio, and I'm delighted to introduce you to a wife and husband team. I am saying it that way around for very good reason. I have in front of me Kristen Nehrenhausen and her husband Sven Clement, and I'm sure it's not often that they are introduced that way around, but that is the point of our conversation. So welcome to you both.
Hi, Lisa.
Thank you for having us.
Well, Sven, you're no stranger to a radio studio, and nor are you, Kristen, because in fact, many years ago, when you were about 14, this is how you met.
Exactly. Sven and I, we met when we were 14. We were both at high school at an extracurricular called Schülerradio, and we met there. We were friends, and some years later, we met up again, and since then, we're a couple.
Well, there is quite the story there. To anybody outside of Luxembourg, because most people, not all, I have run into a couple who don't know you. In fact, I ran into one last time I saw you, Kristen. But you are, of course, a politician here in Luxembourg. You were a Députée from the age of about 29, which is super young.
It doesn't feel that young if you've been in politics 10 years before that. But yeah, actually 29 was still very young. And even at 36 now, I don't feel old. I feel like I have a whole life in front of me.
You're not old. Let's just say
that's
that.
the interesting part. I'm a member of parliament for a party that is very strangely named the Pirate Party. We are a social liberal force in Luxembourg fighting for more transparency. And very rarely do I get introduced as the husband, but more and more often.
Yes, and that is why I'm going to pause you right there. But you kindly did it yourself, because I'm going to turn back to you, Kristen, because part of this conversation is opening up the quieter voice, or at least the voice the larger public doesn't hear so much, which is what it's like to be a political couple, what it's like to be the wife of somebody who's travelling a lot, working in the way that Sven does, in a very open way, and how your life changed after all of this happened. But just going back a little bit again, and firstly, I want to say thank you both for being here today, because it's a very poignant week for you. And in fact, when I interviewed you back in 2018, I met your beautiful dog, Fiji. And I know this week, Fiji had to be put down.
Yeah, but we're glad to be here.
It was the right decision.
It's in the life of a politician, it's like in everybody else's life. You always have private things going on. It's just that for most couples, they're not so much in the spotlight and it's not so visible. And also mostly they don't talk about it that much. And Sven and I, we both have a podcast. It's called Maybe a Mandat. So more than a political mandate, where we shine the light on all those private aspects, on all those behind the scenes moments of what does it mean for the family. Also to show that politicians are not some, like far away people that are not human, that you only know from TV, but that we are like, or Sven at least and his colleagues, they are people like everybody else. And so this week we struggle a lot with grief, having to have put down our dog when she was a beloved family member for over 9 years, and she has
seen you through so much, seen you through the birth of your daughter, seen you through your marriage, seen you through becoming a politician. She's been there for all of the big life stages that you've shared as a family unit. So thank you for being here and talking to us in this week of grief. And as you rightly said, you as a couple are very open about many of the things that you do. And in fact, transparency, as you said, for the Pirate Party, when it comes to technical things, is really one of the core values of what you do. I know also that if we just go back to when you first met and then your lives weaved in and out of one another, you came back together in 2011. You had one date, and after that, you were a couple. Yeah. And even though you went to Salamanca in Spain to study, he came and he drove there with your parents all the way at 1,600 kilometers to Spain just for 2 days and back again.
Yeah, without my parents, actually.
I think I wouldn't have survived.
He always showed up for me. And he always keeps his promises, and he always puts family and friends first. And that's one of the key characteristics I really love about Sven, because early on in our relationship, he already showed that he's fully committed, which is something that's very rare if you meet a 21-year-old man. Usually they're all about, playing around, fooling around, maybe discovering something. And then we met at a time, 21, your frontal lobe isn't fully developed until you're 25.
For most people, but it seems you two have very, very highly developed frontal lobes.
I'm not sure about that. I just think that we grown together, and we've influenced also each other very, very much.
Because you're polar opposites. You're a linguist, you're artistic, and you love all things cultural. You're a scientist, mathematician, techno-geek, technophile through and through. And that is like, you are the perfect jigsaw pieces coming together.
Yeah, exactly. I think opposites.
Oh, but rough at the edges for sure.
Rough at the edges is just fine. But also just coming back to the reality of what happened. So you did have this relationship, of course. You had Pax, which is equivalent, at least in the eyes of the taxman, being married here in Luxembourg before you actually got married. And, he was part of the party, and you're thinking, oh, yes, yeah, well, I mean, it might happen one day. And then it did happen, but it happened very suddenly. So overnight, in October 2018, he becomes a member of parliament. Yeah. How does that feel for you?
Horrible. Everybody said, you must be so thrilled. But actually, it was one of the worst days. Not initially when they were elected. We were all over the moon. But let that sink in a few hours, and you're just like completely from one day to another thrown into the unknown. Mm-hmm. You have no idea what's happening. You have no idea because the schedule is changing. The work is changing. He was self-employed. He had his own communications consultant company with a colleague. And from one day to another, he was even more public figure. He was putting his whole life upside down to accommodate the new responsibilities.
And that's what happened to him.
Yeah.
But it also had the shadow effect on you.
Exactly.
So were you treated differently?
Absolutely. I was treated differently, and I hated it because I didn't change, and neither did he. But especially, for me, nothing changed. There were people coming up to me, especially the older generations, like, oh, you still continue working, but you're a Madame la Députée now. I was like, yeah. So what does that mean? And also people were saying like, oh yeah, for sure, she can like buy this new purse that's expensive. He has money. And I was like, yeah, actually, I'm the one with more money. I'm the one with more assets,
We should really clear that up. I married upwards.
Yeah.
People always think that I was the one with money. But
nope.
Actually, I married upwards, and she definitely married downwards.
Well, we'll leave that indoors. We don't need to hash out that on air. Just to say all of this, you were suddenly vanishing in your own identity. Who you were suddenly became the wife of.
It was horrible. I'm a feminist. I always...
As am I.
Yeah, no, you are, Sven, and I will give you a voice in a minute, but let your wife speak.
I'm a feminist, and I hated disappearing behind the identity of a man because people completely didn't know me for who I was, but they treated me as the nice,
the nice wife.
The nice wife. And then people were so astonished in the beginning when we were together at events and they heard me speaking, or like they heard me how I speak with him, and that we tease each other. And I mean, I studied political science. It's not that this world or the concepts are foreign to me. So
on that point, I have a little line here that you wrote to me. In your household, how do those political conversations go? Who would you say knows more about political science in your household now?
Well, obviously, my husband, my
Not
know-it-all.
obviously. This is an open question, but I'm only pointing to what you humbly wrote. But it's not, of course, this was your degree. This is absolutely part of your core being. And he brings you did computer science, information technology. And so you bring a completely other facet upon that. And you've used that marvelously in both your consultancy work and your political life as well. So this identity vanishing, in fact, the weekend that he was elected, you went to Ostend, I think it was. You went to the beach in Belgium just to escape with your mother.
Exactly. I said, Sven, sorry, give me 3 days. I need to breathe. He was for sure.
I was already packing my bag just to be sure.
I think he was a bit anxious that I would leave him.
Which you did for 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, had a for sure an identity crisis and also like a life crisis because in the beginning when we met in 2011, he already founded a pirate party like 2-3 years. So I saw it as like a very cute little hobby. It's like, oh yeah, oh cute. He founded a party. I found that very heartwarming, that you stand up that much for your ideals, that you want to found your own party. But then it was never really... Nobody thought that you would get elected.
If Hallmark is listening, we can sell the rights to that story for a Christmas movie.
Well, maybe you can produce it yourself. I'm quite sure you've got good links with the Film Fund of Luxembourg. But it is a very, very good story. And I absolutely remember that election season. And so then you have people thinking of you differently. You have people saying, are you really driving this old car? And lines like this are coming at you.
Yeah.
How do you stand up to that?
Well, you just stay true to yourself. You don't let other people's opinions matter or influence the way you live and behave. We have always stayed true to ourselves. We didn't change. We didn't change, I'd say. We keep the same friend group. Like you have your Scouts friends that you have since basically your whole life.
Forever.
You didn't change, but you have big life events that happen to you. And I know that you're open enough to speak about them because, in fact, you've brought them to Parliament. And if I may just point out the first one, which is that you suffered, like many, many women, a miscarriage. And this happened when Sven was not even, was he not around? He wasn't reachable.
Yeah. Yeah, it was horrible. That's the part where... People always see that Sven is traveling and think it's glamorous, but in fact it's very hard, not only for him, but also for the family that's left behind. And we were talking about starting a family for a few years. We always were sure that we wanted to have kids. Then when the pregnancy test was positive, we were both so happy and over the moon. And then he went to Jordan for Parliament. And... during that weekend, I had a miscarriage. So I was alone at home. I started bleeding and it was in November. So it was icy on the road and it was during the night. So I was completely alone. I had to deal with it myself. I had nobody to lean on. And I drove to the maternité and they just diagnosed that there's no longer heartbeat. And they only asked, are you here alone? I was like, yeah. Where's your husband? I was like, he's away. He's abroad for work. And that seemed like the only thing that mattered, like that I shouldn't be driving home alone or something. They didn't comfort me. I mean, sure, for them it's business as usual.
No, I don't think that's correct, actually. I think part of healthcare is mental health care. But
yeah, they just let me go while I was crying. I mean, I was completely... I remember breaking down in parking lot. And then I was like, how do I tell Sven? He's in Jordan.
So let's go back to that. Sorry, how were you treated in hospital?
May I just maybe give one sentence that he told me and that we've later on published in an op-ed in a newspaper in Luxembourg. It was that sentence that still stings really at the heart. You were standing there and they said there's no heartbeat. You now have to see if it goes away by itself or in 2 days you have to come back for curettage. Goodbye. That was about the level of healthcare she experienced that night.
Yeah.
And having talked a lot about healthcare in Luxembourg, and I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty details of policy, but the human side, the human aspect of how we deal with patients in Luxembourg is sometimes very dehumanizing. It's trying to be very efficient, being very efficient with resources, which is great from a price point, but it's very bad from a human side and mental health. Don't get me started on mental health. We will get into that, but the situation is atrocious.
I'm so surprised that you were treated like that in Luxembourg, because I didn't have my children here in Luxembourg. But I know if you have a baby here, you have a long period of time in hospital compared to many other countries. So the fact that you were treated like that at a different stage of what is actually still pregnancy is really quite extraordinary to me. And as you say, it's the humanity that is entirely lacking there in what is, a care profession.
Yeah.
But off the back of this awful experience, and the reason, by the way, you couldn't get hold of Sven was not only was he in Jordan, but it was nighttime.
Yeah.
His phone was, unavailable, and you were there truly, truly alone, and that also clearly led to a sort of a PTSD.
Yeah, it was very traumatic because I already struggled during my whole life with mental health issues. I suffered from depression since I was a kid, basically. And so moments like these, for sure, like they push you back into a hole.
They're triggers, but all of
They're
this should have been
triggers.
on the medical record, which should have been open to...
But for me, it was more the problem when I went, for example, to the OBGYN. I had like an older lady, and I went there for my 12 weeks checkup, which should have been the checkup where she says like everything's okay and you're good to go. You like surpassed that critical level. And I started crying. And then she said to me, "Stop crying. There are women that have it worse." I had a woman here, she was in her 8 months and she had to give birth to a dead baby. And I'm like, are you serious? Am I not allowed to grieve? Is my grief or my baby not worth it? And I told her, you're not allowed to dictate my feelings. And I've never gone back to her. After that, I found an amazing doctor. I stayed with her through also the pregnancy with our daughter. That's Mia. She's 4 now. So I was also... I saw that it's not okay how she treated me, and I took my consequences. But many people maybe don't know that it's not okay, or
they wouldn't
think,
have your confidence
yes,
to speak up.
Yes.
Because not only may they not have your confidence to speak up, but you're in a state of grief and trauma.
Exactly.
And that also dents one's confidence. But the beautiful thing is, Sven, you brought this, as you've said, you've alluded to already, you wrote an article, you brought this story out into the public domain, and you have discussed this story, you have discussed this in Parliament, and more has happened since then as well. And also you have another podcast called Yodo, You Only Die Once. So a lot of good has also come from this.
Oh, absolutely. And the important thing here is really that we need more people to speak up. It should not be necessary that the wife of a politician and the politician himself, in this case myself, have to experience trauma for politics to take it serious.
Yeah.
Do you think it's more powerful that it's a male voice speaking up?
I hope not.
I hope not as well. I think it doesn't really matter whether it's a man or a woman saying it. But
I think it does, personally, because
I believe
if a man is bringing up a subject that they haven't physically experienced, I think it actually does carry more weight.
It's an interesting point you make, because when I wrote the article, we had a long discussion in the office about it, and I had long talks with Christine about should we, shouldn't we, couldn't it be seen as using your personal trauma for political gain? And this was one of the concerns we had. Every time we open up, people can criticize us for using it, for abusing our personal experiences. And I find that so sad, because part of what makes it important to have a diverse set of voices in politics and in Parliament is that we get all those perspectives into lawmaking. And so I believe it's very important that politicians speak up, but I find it sad that it needs to be, especially something that concerns 25% of all women.
1 in 4, yeah, exactly.
So 1 of 4 women are concerned by miscarriages at least once in their life. It shouldn't be a politician husband bringing it up.
Yeah.
It should have been on the radar for a long time. And that's and that comes back to the mental health question. You said, wasn't that in your record? Well, the record keeping in healthcare in Luxembourg, it's a mess, and it has not worked for a long time. And
well, I'm glad you brought this topic up, and I'm glad it's you that's bringing this up, because of course you are a dedicated technophile. You know huge amounts. You are a young politician, which also brings the added advantage that you know so much about technology. You're deeply interested in it. It's been your passion. It's been your studies, and you have brought to the attention also, it's on the record, various things that have happened through record data keeping. You've brought it up years in advance. So perhaps to those who did not catch that one of those stories as they came out, give us an example of the data breaches.
It's not secure, which happened with the Medico files, which is the Medico Sportif, where every person exercising any sport in Luxembourg needs to go, and which was secured in 2016, if I remember correctly, simply by a username and a password. Well, I saw that username and the password on the post-it, and I proved that the data was accessible. I then got sentenced for €500 as a fine.
So you proved by ethically hacking, which, I mean, when I go say ethically hacking, you basically just...
I entered a username and a password.
Which you saw, which was on full view. So it wasn't like you had to do anything hard.
No,
I mean, even I could have done that.
You could have done it. Christine could have done it. I believe Mia could have done it at 4 years old. So...
which proves the point underlined. But you were sentenced for this.
I was sentenced for that.
In a fine.
Well, it's a criminal fine in the end. Now the record is clear. It's a long time ago, but nonetheless, it shows that either the data is not secured, or if it is secured, we manage to secure it that well that nobody accesses it and nobody uses it. And so in the end, we have the...
But I mean, it also shows that you can't be a whistleblower. What you did shows that the whistleblowers are prosecuted.
That's why I'm very happy now to have parliamentary immunity when people approach me, tell me stuff that is not working, and I can bring that to the forefront.
But they can't.
I can't, in all of my conscience, I can't recommend to people going forward on their own, because I know from personal experience, I know from personal connections I have here in Luxembourg that try to be whistleblowers, that got sacked, that got criminally prosecuted, and for doing the right thing.
So effectively, that's a call out to anybody living in Luxembourg or beyond the borders of Luxembourg who sees something going on that is, in their view, wrong, immoral. Go to Sven and he will sort it out.
Yeah. Or contact another MP you trust.
Another MP.
I think it's a question of trust, obviously.
Yeah.
Or contact journalists, but make sure to protect yourself.
You can contact me either. Him first, second me. One way or the other we'll get. But then coming back to the whole medical story, there was another episode that you endured. Unfortunately, you had planned to go back to work, and then you had this terrible fall, and like any automatic motherly response.
Yeah, maybe now we are jumping a bit. Maybe now this was losing the first baby. It was 2019. It took a bit of time. There was the mental health episodes in between, and then finally in 2021, actually almost exactly on Christmas Day, on the 24th of my grandma's birthday, on the 24th of December in 2020, we had another positive pregnancy test with a presumed date mid-September 21. And so this pregnancy, we were super careful at first. We thought like it was COVID all around. So I was working like crazy in video conferences the whole day, but I was at home with Christine, so that was great. And then that pregnancy went super well. We were able to travel during the pregnancy, which is super rare, which is enormous privilege. I think was part of the most beautiful period in our relationship up till then. And then Mia decided to be a little bit early. So almost 2 weeks earlier than expected, but still 52 minutes too late for the Luxembourgish government.
Yeah, but we wanted to tell another story.
Sorry,
and-
what do you mean 52 minutes too late? You're leaving me hanging
yeah,
there.
sorry. I just always try that he doesn't take it for his political ideas
but
again.
this is not political.
I don't have
this
this part of the
This
story.
is personal.
This is personal. So Mia is born on the 1st of September. Actually, during the night from the 30th of August to the
31st of August.
31st of August to the 1st of September. And so she was born at
Midnight 52.
52.
I
I was
see.
in labor for 2 days before, so I was already in the hospital. And she was born on the 1st of September, which means
I
that
see where this is going.
Yeah, she couldn't enroll with précoce because she was 52 minutes too
Young.
too young. So, yeah.
And there is absolutely no flexibility when it comes to enrolling into précoce or into pre-K. So, in my opinion, and that's really what is getting on my nerves. Now, Mia is, every parent will tell that about their kids, but Mia is an intelligent little girl that knows her way around. Already speaking, strangely enough, we never approached that practically, but speaking 4 languages, and she can now only enroll into précoce at 4 years old. She will be 4 years and 2 weeks when she finally enrolls into précoce, which shows to me that sometimes the flexibility, and that's again the human side, there are kids that are ready earlier, there are kids that should take their time, that where it makes sense to take their time. And so I feel a bit like we are too focused on a raw number. And I always joke, if she would have been born in the UK at exactly the same second, she would have enrolled already a year ago into précoce.
Yeah, we have a different system there, although there is still
No, but
the
simply
cutoff date.
simply because of the time difference of 1 hour.
Oh, the time difference of
my
1 hour. Oh, right. Yes.
She could
Well,
have been born a few 100 kilometers to the west,
It's fine. So,
and she would have been enrolled.
this is true. But I mean, you do have to have some kind of cutoffs, or otherwise the whole system. I mean,
I believe in flexibility. That's something.
how do you monitor flexibility?
we
How would you not have people trying to take advantage of that for the childcare so that they could go off and do something else? Possibly work.
we have a very good public support system for childcare. We have the free crash or the almost free crash. It's not something where you are spending, where the government is currently subsidizing already. You can say even too much, but we have professionals that can evaluate those kids for almost up to 3 years.
Yeah.
If they recommend, I don't think it should be only the parents' wish to say, I want to or I don't want to, because that's a convenance personnelle. But no, if we have the professionals that we pay dearly to watch our kids, would recommend a kid to be early or to be kept
Well,
back.
of course, the reason this is an important story is mostly in most other countries so that the female has the opportunity to go back to work. This is the crux of the story. And the layer I was going to bring up was that I don't know how old Mia was, but you had a terrible fall, and you were
3 months.
yeah.
Right, and you were trying to protect her, of course, automatically by destroying yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I think I had this motherly instinct that you cannot put into words, where you don't think, you just act. So I was going up the stairs and Mia was in front of my chest. So without turning myself on my back, I would have crushed her beneath me. And she had nothing, thank God. I could really protect her, but I was severely injured and I had to get a surgery of my foot. I had.
You couldn't look at
Sven
it,
is
your
having
food.
flashbacks here of
Yeah, it was horrible. I still have 14 screws in my foot. I mean, it was so horrible. I was not able to walk. I was in a wheelchair for a bit. It was a really tough time. But the thing is that I was lucky because Sven, he was away until the day before. He was just at home for, I don't think it was more than 26 hours. And the day after, he should have left for the US. And it just happened that Saturday where he was at home. And I still think what would have been if you hadn't been at home. And the additional problem was I was on it was like my last day of maternity leave, which did an additional layer of administrative complication because I wasn't entitled to sick leave. So because I was in maternity leave, that complicated lots of things, and I didn't get any compensation. I didn't get any prolongation of my congé parental. And Sven had to step in from one moment to the other without being able to take parental leave because
politicians are not allowed to take.
I have to say 60 people, only 60 people,
in
men
Luxembourg.
and women in Luxembourg aren't allowed to take parental and or maternal leave. And so we had to juggle taking care of a baby, going to work, accommodating me.
It was during budget crunch, so it was a very intense time in Parliament. Gladly, we still had some COVID video conferences and everything, so it was manageable.
So I thought you were young in Parliament, but actually it's your daughter Mia who ended up being the youngest, attending parliamentary sessions. And you really did. She slept next to you, you cooked with her in a little baby carrier, and you were always giving interviews and doing your work whilst you really had to take over. And thank God you were there and you could do that. But it just goes to show, again, you have this incredible bond and incredible partnership, but it shows that terrible things happen and you have to cope with them as a family, and there's no let up in your job. There's no kind of you can take a break or take a day off. That doesn't happen.
No, I don't feel like that's part of why people elected me, and part of the constitutional mandate is to be available 24/7. And
yes, believe me.
But all of this, as you're bringing up a new family and you're experiencing all of these things, and I hear you talk about preschool care and about parental leave for politicians and other people in your situation, you are literally thinking about all of these things as a politician, which, you know, most of the time politicians are elected when they are older, mostly older men, and they don't experience these things. So you're bringing hugely fresh eyes to all of this, along with your tech savvy knowledge. And I wanted to come back to that story because you mentioned in passing the Medico Sportif and how easy it was to access that data. And quite recently, we also had a cyber attack on Post and the data there. So as I am quite sure you've brought up in Parliament, these things will happen, are happening, will become more common. This is sort of where the next war is going to be played out.
Oh, we are already in the middle, and I'm not mincing my words here. We are in the middle of a hybrid warfare. The Post attack was not some innocent guy in the cellar.
So for those outside of Luxembourg, just tell us what happened. I think it was about the 26th of July.
It was the 23rd of July where Post went offline for 4 hours because...
and Post is the biggest...
That's the biggest telecoms operator and traditional incumbent in anything postal services related. And they got brought down by a sophisticated, probably zero-day attack, which is a very expensive attack, a very rare attack. We also spoke about it in our recent podcast, so people can listen more in depth about that. But essentially...
What language is your podcast
It's in Luxembourgish, but we have English subtitles. So when you're watching it on YouTube, you can select the English subtitles.
And learn Luxembourgish as you go along.
That being said, it was not an isolated case. The same day, British Telecom, Vodafone and EE in the UK had also outages. Orange in France got hacked and attacked. And Proximus in Belgium got attacked. So there were 4 countries at and on around the same day that got attacked, where the mobile operators were the target. And so we've seen that this is probably not a coincidence. Now, we can't prove it decisively, but for me, as a tech-savvy guy and somebody watching the security space, essentially, this is a clear act of hybrid warfare.
And do you know where the source was?
Well, no, that's the question. And that's the big question. If I had the answer, we could already have taken at least some action. And this is...
Against them. But could action be taken to increase the security, or is that not a parliamentary decision, that's a decision for the company?
Well, to increase security and safety, it would be good if we would acknowledge our shortcomings when questioned. And I only published this morning, and it was a bit cheek and tongue when I said...
Tongue in cheek.
Tongue in cheek. Thank God, for once I'm not the know-it-all.
Sorry.
You see, English is not my
it's one of your
language.
many languages. I know. I bow down to you.
That being said, this morning I posted like lie, noun, when the government doesn't want to tell a parliamentarian the whole truth. And why did I post that? Because 7 years ago, in 2018, one of my first parliamentary questions was addressed to the government to know whether Chinese equipment was used in the network of Post. And the answer was no, there's no Chinese equipment. Now we know that Chinese equipment had been hacked. So it changes a bit the narrative. At the same time, a few weeks later, I asked, what do people do if the internet goes down? Your phone lines are all now voice over IP, which means that essentially they need internet to work. And they want to call 112, which is the emergency line. And the answer of the minister then, which was Minister Bötter, was literally...
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister. Well,
then.
he answered as the Minister for Communications, but...
Which was also what he...
Which was also part of his portfolio. He replied, Honourable Member of Parliament, if that would happen, they can simply use a mobile phone. Or if their mobile phone doesn't work, they could ask their neighbor for a mobile phone. And if that doesn't work, they could go to a public phone booth. So I'm not sure when anybody of the listeners here has seen a working public phone booth over the last years.
Not only have I not even seen one of those, I can't think of them or where they are in Luxembourg if they're not full of books. But I'm also just stumped at the fact that he's asking you to use a mobile phone when your point is it wouldn't be working.
Yeah. That shows the understanding.
That was 6 years ago. Now we had exactly that situation here in Luxembourg.
So what has
and
changed?
We were not aware. Well, I think we now know that we are not an island in a very tranquil sea, but that we are also part of a security architecture that needs to take security and safety seriously. And now...
And whose job is that? Is that Parliament's job or the company's job? Or both?
Given that Post is 100% owned by the Luxembourg government, by the Luxembourg state, that's part of the Luxembourgish politicians'
Not just
job.
Post, though, the other companies who are privately owned.
Well, we have regulations, rules that should make sure that companies have backup plans, especially systemic companies. So we have the NIS directive.
They clearly haven't worked.
They haven't worked, and now we need to investigate why they haven't worked. And obviously this has happened over summer, so it was already a very rare occurrence that we had a committee meeting talking about that during the very holy Luxembourgish summer break. It was via video call so that everybody could join. And I'm not ashamed to say I joined from Disneyland Tokyo because I was on holiday and we were in Japan with the family. And I would leave it to Christine to tell you more about the background behind that committee meeting, because
Christine, tell us more about the background of that committee meeting whilst you're in Disneyland in Tokyo.
Well, people always think, or there's like a big misconception that politicians are somehow lazy and that they are not really working. And the thing is that they don't see the lots of behind the scenes work. And one of it is, even if now there's no parliamentary session, you still have your normal job that's going on. And we were in Disneyland. We were really looking forward to it. It was not cheap. Obviously you're in Japan, so it's not often that this occurs. And our little one, she's a huge Frozen fan. So she's completely in her Disney phase and
loves her father's name.
Yeah. And so when he said...
She thinks I smell slightly better than the reindeer.
But we love Sven the reindeer too.
Yeah, we love.
But back to more serious matters.
Yeah, so he told me, so listen, tomorrow is this really important committee session over video. I will take my backpack. I will bring my headphones and my laptop, and you go with the little one. You entertain her, and I will need quiet place somewhere to work. And you can imagine in Disneyland, it's not very easy to find a quiet place to work.
Were you in the toilet?
No, on a terrace. We were in Asia where people are not living that much outside or like more covering up in the sun. So he was tranquil on a terrace where there was not really anybody, like fewer Europeans.
I sat like in a corner on that terrace so that nobody could see my screen. And I had my headphones on, and so I could then listen and interact with.
And your Wi-Fi network was secure?
I brought my own phone that used a SIM card and a VPN to connect back to Luxembourg first. And it's part of being prepared and having everything with you. And so I could attend that committee meeting.
But this is truly something that you deeply, deeply care about. And I mean, it was something you brought up years before. And I know there's so many other stories related to this that you care about. So how are you trying to affect a much more accelerated and necessary change before these things become too great to handle?
Well, we now have a unique opportunity in recent history. That's that we now have way more budget for security-related issues. And part of that budget needs to be urgently put to use in securing our core infrastructure. And if I'm saying core infrastructure, I'm not only talking about the routers and the computer lines, but actually about physical infrastructure that houses it. We recently had a cut to telecommunications because somebody cut a cable lying next to a railway. This is not something that is hyper-secured, and you can't secure hundreds of kilometers of cable. It's simply impossible. So we need to harden our infrastructure in a way that we can route around it, so that we can always have a workaround, always have a backup, always be ready to enable an emergency protocol. And I've asked multiple questions to the government. Please, here are options. Could we think about that?
And how do you talk to the government so that they listen and do?
Do they listen?
I believe that sometimes they listen, only like on a completely different note. But and that shows that even opposition MPs sometimes have the power to instill change in government. A few weeks back, through a whistleblower, I got aware that our customs agents had not been paid for their overtime from last year. We were talking July for overtime in January 24. So I was asking the question, normally they get paid in May. Where's the money? Why hasn't it been paid? Before they answered, suddenly they got paid. So at least we could probably move along that process. And I know from sources internally that there were a lot of phone calls why I had to ask that question for it to move along. So it is part of talking privately to ministers. It's part of using public pressure to tell them, look, guys, this needs to happen. And sometimes falling on deaf ears, where sometimes they simply believe that they are right and I'm wrong. And
but it's
that's
also
part of
showing
politics.
The power of that opposition voice, the power that you can bring all sorts of topics without having to deal with them, but knowing that they're important. You bring the topic of conversation up so that it has to be discussed in an open forum that is recorded.
That's part of the important thing is sometimes, and I would prefer not to be right on a lot of issues.
Is he? How right is he?
No, it's true. No, for example, we discussed it. There was a recent fraud where hackers duplicated the bank bill website, and a private individual got withdrawn money without their knowledge, and it was in fact it was possible due to some lack of security measures. And already a few years ago, Sven said, well, listen, what if this and this happens? Like, how do we guarantee that people are not paying for it, but that there's like a security?
And this is part tech, this is part policy.
It's the combination that you do so well, those two things. Something else that I think is important, because you've both done it. You were self-employed, you had your own business as an independent. You encouraged Christine to also, because you said you wrote that you wouldn't have become self-employed if it hadn't been for the help of Sven, just to give you the courage to do that and to help with all of the admin around that. So, how easy is it to be a self-employed person in Luxembourg, and would you recommend it?
No.
No. I absolutely recommend it.
How can you make it easier for us?
It's already easier now because we have the House of Entrepreneurship, and we have like lots of measures that weren't in existence when we both decided to be self-employed. But still, it's super tough, especially the whole tax side and the whole Sécurité Sociale. And we recently had our favorite Italian restaurant, Abrupt in Großbuß. The owner, she was very open on social media about it, that she had done some honest mistake and she has miscalculated financial stuff. And now she's in a huge debt for, I think it was 30,000 euros for the government. And she said,
payable in 10 days.
Yeah, payable
it's always
in 10 days.
The government always wants you to pay in 10 days, which is also...
As if you have 30,000 sitting around in a business bank account.
And so she came forward with it. She was very open about it. She received lots of positive encouragement and feedback. And Sven already talked to her 4 years ago that he had the same thing. That it's just something you don't really...
For a different amount. But
But I mean... You don't really think about that.
Because the situation is that the tax can come over the last 5 years. They can suddenly give you a bill.
Recalculate.
Just from a personal experience again, only this year have we been taxed for the last 4 years.
Sven and I privately.
So we have, given that I still own shares in my company, even if I'm not active in the company as an operational manager for multiple reasons, I have to focus on my parliamentary work as well. We still received some dividends, we still received some residuals from the last years. And so over the last years, we had multiple income streams. And that means that your tax declaration doesn't go through automatically. Then getting all the deductions, and so we got audited, which took also some time. So we had a 4-year audit of our tax situation. And then at the same time, they decided to reclassify some part of the political income from independent income to salaried income, which means that a lot of calculations with now the Sécurité Sociale don't work anymore, which means that currently I'm in the strange opposite situation that most self-employed people are, that the Sécurité Sociale wants to pay me back a huge sum of money, which I paid as, and that's one of the misconceptions people have. Politicians, we are paying into the same social security system than we paid in before we were elected. So if you were a public servant, well, you continue paying in as a public servant. If you were an independent, you are paying in as an independent, which means they take your income, they take 25%, essentially.
I know.
And given that they requalified that income from self-employed to salaried, they now want to give me back 25% of my income over the last 4 years.
As a politician?
Yeah.
Lucky you.
No,
I don't want the money back.
that's it. Because
I
now he
want it to
gets-
be going towards my pension.
Exactly. Otherwise, he gets so much less pension.
Right. I
So
see.
it's nice if somebody sends you a letter and wants to give you a few tens of thousands
Well, you
euros
can put
back.
it into a private pension when you get it back.
Yeah.
That's easily solved.
Yeah, you can, but that's also a bit of cheating the system, and it's not the image of
It's not what we believe in.
Yeah, solidarity. I mean, we don't have a personal pleasure of cheating the system. It's not in our
It's not
mind.
why you do what you
Yeah,
do.
exactly.
So this is my call to the social security system.
Take
Please
your money
take my
back.
money.
Well, normally people just say yes to that when it's offered on a plate, but I'm sure
Yeah.
you're in the right position to change things like that. Again, everything is coming back to the healthcare system in one way or another. And then I just want to perhaps end with a conversation around that more openly, because I know you've again been very open and honest about handling that as a couple and together with your daughter. And going forward, what changes would you like to see happen so that people are treated humanly, as you said?
It's such a tough question, because the problem is that on the one hand you have all your wishes, and on the other hand you know the reality on the ground, that we are understaffed, that we have lack of medical personnel.
Understaffed doesn't mean you have to be rude.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. I would say, let's say a societal wish would be that we are more open and less stigmatizing about mental health issues, that we de-dramatize having depression, that we can talk about our mental health issues as much as our bodily malfunctions. Like, I always joke that Luxembourgish people, especially like a generation above ours, like they open about the weather, and the second thing is immediately they talk about their ailments, and they say, oh, like I have this and this, oh, I had this and this, and do you know who's in hospital? And they love talking about sickness, but it stops once it gets to the mind, because that's shameful, that's taboo. And I would love that we are like in the States more honest about it. Like, everybody has a therapist there, and you talk about it like going to the gym. And I mean,
Well, more people should go to the gym as well.
and
What?
to the therapist.
Well, you clearly have been, Sven. You've been keeping. I certainly there's a huge change, and congratulations. I know that you're on a big health kick. You bring up then the topic of being open, and actually, I just happened to post a semi-personal story this week, and there was a lot of feedback because it was a personal story that obviously a lot of people related to, which is why I also believe in having these open and honest conversations. But the curious thing for me was the women were responding very openly. The men were writing to me privately and literally said to me they could not talk about this publicly. Now, you are very unusual, Sven, in that you are an empath. You are very open about all of these things that you've experienced personally and as a family, and what your wife has gone through, and you've literally brought it to government. But I think still in our society there's a taboo for men, particularly when it comes to showing vulnerability.
Yes and no. I believe it's not only about vulnerability, it's sometimes, and that's also if Christine has a societal wish, my societal wish would be that we don't stigmatize between genders on who should address which issue. It seems to still be a taboo for men to address certain female ailments. And it's absolutely okay not to talk about male ailments anyway. And that's part of, because we believe that men need to be the stronger gender, the stronger sex, and being the strong supporter of the household. Okay, we are not cavemen anymore. And even if we are looking at biological and historical biological elements, we know that women already did a huge chunk of the work when the man went out hunting and very often died during the hunt. So it was always a female society anyway. So we should maybe be more open, not only about ourselves, but about what other people are feeling. We should not immediately try to solve the issue. One of the biggest issues of man is very often we hear women talk about a problem, and we want to solve it.
Or
Well,
you
at least
mansplain.
that's what I'm trying to do. Solve the issue. I'm trying not to mansplain. I'm trying to be good in that sense. Not always succeeding. But the important part is really that we get to a point where we can listen to each other and then address the issue at hand without judging. And that's something, whether we are talking about mental health, whether we are talking about how our bodies age and all the changes that go with it, how we are talking about education, being inclusive in the workplace. Sometimes it's as easy as buying a new mouse. Sometimes it needs a standing desk. Sometimes it needs hourly adjustments. Sometimes it needs a quieter environment and noise-cancelling headphones. There are a lot of adaptations we could easily bring to the workplace without going to the hassle, administrative tax, authorizations, doctors, where we could simply help people being more productive, more included in the society. And that's something where I feel that we are dropping the ball, where we are not open enough, honest enough with ourselves and looking into ourselves and say, oh, well, maybe I have the same issue. Maybe I know somebody who has the same issue. Maybe we should address that more comprehensively. And that's something, and we could apply that to each and every political topic we are currently discussing. And we are short on time, but you know that we could talk about that, whether it's creating a company, being self-employed. Well, currently the biggest issue for people is opening a bank account, apparently. Well, instead of shaming them for why they don't get a bank account, we should find common solutions with them. If it's about mental health, we should stop treating people like numbers and only treating them when they say, oh, I'm thinking about harming myself. We should treat them early on. We should do our best to have a system where people can be themselves. And I'm not sure we are there yet. I'm pretty sure we are not there yet. So that's what I'm fighting for on a daily basis.
Thank you, Sven. Thank you so much. And as I'm now going to call you Zen Sven, that's my title for you from now on. We had this just before the top. Thank you so much. There's no way in the world that you're a vanishing voice in our society, Kristin. It's just so lovely to have you on the show and to hear your voice and your very, very important thoughts, and also how you and your life story has deeply influenced a politician who happens to be your husband,
Exactly.
and it's a really great partnership with its ups and downs, as all partnerships are,
sure.
from up and down with gaps from the age of 14 onwards to the ripe old age of around about 36 with a 3-week difference, I happen to know. And yes,
she's older than me. I'm insisting on it.
That you keep pushing that on her. Yes, I know. 3-week difference. And actually a year change as well, because your birthday is New Year's Eve or something, which is, you do find these dates that become slightly awkward.
Well, we managed to celebrate our wedding on the 1st of July so that she has exactly 6 months between the wedding and her birthday. So at least
really?
we split
Was that
the gift
the reason
exactly
why?
by 6 months.
No.
Did you think about this?
No, the date was so... It was, in German you say, a Schnapszahl. We got, our official wedding was on the 15th of June.
He does remember all the dates, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I don't, and he's still angry that I forgot our wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
Well, he's the numbers man.
Yeah,
Both
he's the
dates
numbers
this
man.
year.
Well, you need to buy her a ring with the dates inscribed
Oh,
inside.
it's fine, I
on
have
her
that.
ring.
It's on me, I know.
If you've got time, we can talk about all the times she already almost lost her rings. So I'm always wearing mine for everything.
Yes, but we take them off to save them when we're putting on hand cream and we don't damage the diamonds.
The date.
I've actually lost mine too.
See.
And I threw them. So Sorry.
Yeah, if you throw them at somebody's hat, that's normally when you don't need them anymore anyway. So.
Anyway, on that happy note about marriage and wonderful partnerships, thank you both so much for being the most fabulous guests. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
The Lisa Burke Show.
Thank you.